Hello, everyone. Bappy here. And, well, I happen to be checking Twitter, as one does, and I noticed people talking about the developer update. And I saw Dead by Daylight's official Twitter post giving a brief like, hey, this is some of the things we're looking at. And I'm like, all right, I'll take a read through. And I wasn't actually originally planning on doing a video, but I got through the Onrio stuff, and I noticed that the next section was hook grabs, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I think I want to do a video. I think I want to do a video reacting to this because I'm like, this actually could be good shit here. So half of this is me going over stuff that I've seen, and half of this is stuff that I have not seen. So let's go through here. So the first thing they're adding, the Survivor Disconnect bots, is honestly, I'm all here for it. And I love that our studies unsurprisingly found that your odds of escaping drop significantly when you remove even one survivor from the trial. Who would have guessed? I'm not expecting a whole lot from the survivor bots, but if they're still up and able able to do gens and not blow them up every 5 seconds, that'll be amazing, even if they're not that great, something is better than nothing, so long as they're not, actively just sabotaging the game, it's fine. It's good with me. I'm happy to see it. And I'm also happy to see that that this does not change anything on the disconnecting player's side. They will still receive a disconnection penalty and forfeit any blood points they've accumulated thus far. Good. You should still be punished for quitting early. You should still be punished for that. Even if the loss isn't quite as hard. And it will still be a loss because the kind of skill that a human player can bring, to mind game killers and whatnot, should outstrip the capabilities of a bot. But let's be real, some of our teammates bot behavior. But so, anyways, moving on. The successful report feedback. This has been something that has been hard to get access to. I know that people like people like Coconut have been able to get easier updates like on their reports and everything. But the fact that this will now just be right there in your face, hey, we did something with that report that you did. It'll be nice to be able to easily see, oh, me reporting, harassment or, such and such, cheating, exploits, stuff like that is actually doing something. It's nice to just know that we're not, I'm 30 seconds in, I'm 3 minutes in. It's nice to know that we're not just pissing in the wind, that our reports are actually doing something. So I'm very happy about that. So I think this is probably the beefiest part of the entire update, is the changes that they're announcing for the Onrio. And this is a big change. So I think a lot of people who know anything about Onrio play have heard of One Pump Willie. Still an absolutely amazing name that I love. A really skilled Onrio player. I believe, what did Willie go on, like it was like 100+ win streak. I believe, with Sadako, and which is no small feat. But he also had a number of matches where he didn't just go for the condemned build. He actually used like a variety of stuff. Like he used the brown newspaper add-on and got some really great plays in that. But I think a big part of that, we talk about, a lot of what he's famous for is his condemned build, where he would not get a single hook. He would kill everyone with condemned. And the thing is that relies on a very specific form of play. It relies on playing it in a very specific kind of way. You have to be teleporting constantly. It really kind of relies on getting a good map, a smaller map. And it relies on being able to quickly teleport and then score a hit with the iridescent videotape in order to power on the last 4 TVs that you teleported to, which allows you to keep on teleporting, keeping people injured. And of course, the other add-on whose name slips my mind right now, that causes people to gain condemned when they heal other people with condemned. And it relies so much on just constantly teleporting, hoping you're teleporting to someone who is near the TV, and just working just overtime, stacking the condemned. And if you're not doing that, then a lot of times it feels like the condemned doesn't matter. It just doesn't happen. If you're not playing for it, then it just doesn't happen. It's not really so much of a natural part of her kit at the moment. But with this update, projecting to a TV now applies 3/4 of a stack of condemned to all survivors not carrying a cursed tape. Previously, as we were discussing, 1 stack to nearby survivors. The fact that this now just applies, a bit of condemned, slightly less condemned than previous teleports, to every survivor makes it actually a factor in games. It'll make it a consistent factor, and not just, one that, is only going to matter if you're really working for it. The time TV is disabled after the Onrio projects to it has been reduced from 70 to 70 seconds, was 100. My horn's blocking it. My apologies. But this is so good. This is so good for the Onrio. Because honestly, now here's the thing. I've never played the Onrio. I was very interested in her when she released. Well, she released around the time I got started in the game, to be honest. So naturally, she was the killer that was like right there in my face when I first started playing. And I thought she was really cool, but the more I dug into her mechanics and that, the more I started to learn about her, and the more I started to understand, the killer side of things, the more I realized that 100 seconds is punishing. 100 seconds where, where one of your teleport points is just not a factor, and can only really easily be made a factor, is with that iridescent videotape, it's so punishing. And yeah, there are add-ons to reduce the time that they're off, but 100 seconds is a hard place to start from. So it being reduced to 70 seconds, I think is very fair, and it's going to be very healthy. A lot of people point out that the Onrio is really weak. And really only goes up in tier when you're going for those hardcore play styles, like Willie's condemned play style makes her very aggressive and very dangerous, but is also pretty map dependent. When the time a TV is disabled after a survivor removes the curse tape has been increased to 90 seconds, was 60 seconds. This actually really incentivizes people to carry the tapes, which is something that they're going to talk about further down. And projection now has a 15-second cooldown, which is a great balancing factor for the fact that the teleporting now applies condemned to everyone. So that's just a good balance for that. It's a great balance for that. If you were a fan of the super aggressive condemned playstyle that Willie made famous, that's gonna be a big kick in the pants. But I'm certain there will be new interesting playstyles that arise from this, because I think, and while I'm not an expert, like people like Odstarva, who has like an encyclopedic knowledge of the game and could probably tell you the exact difference between all 5 Batum preschools. I still, from what I know about the Onrio and from what I've seen in in videos and breakdowns of her of her power and her ability and her capabilities as a killer, I think that this is going to be a pretty good balance. But the curse tapes, getting hit with a basic attack while carrying a curse tape will apply 1 stack of condemned. That is very interesting, especially considering the fact that holding a curse tape no longer passively builds condemned. So this is a, you can carry tapes to, like, if you want to make a gen safer to work on, so that the Onrio can't teleport on top of you. You can do that, but if you're going to run around with it, then you're going to run the risk of getting condemned when you get chased. And getting down with the tape now matters, because when a survivor carrying a cursed tape is hooked, all other survivors gain 1 stack of condemned, and the tape is destroyed. That is a juicy little tweak to it, where it's a sort of calculated risk. It's a strategic decision that you have to make. If you want to work on a gen with a TV close by, then you may want to remove the tape in order to make it safer to work on. However, this now adds the risk of you can now end up you can now end up being a liability to your team, as well as yourself. If you get hit and then you get downed, that's 2 stacks that you gain from being hit twice, and then that's a stack that everyone else gets when you get hooked. Curse tapes can now be placed in any TV other than the one they were retrieved from. When I first read that, I was like, it was one of those things where I was kind of like, I don't know how I feel about that. But the more I think about it, yeah, the fact that it is now easier to apply condemned to other survivors, I think it's good that you can return it to any TV other than the one you retrieved it from, because this kind of ended up in a situation where you'd see people I've seen one Bump Willie do this, along with other Onrio players, where they would look at like where okay, where did the TV turn off? You know, where are they headed to? Oh, okay, this is their TV. So I'll project there ahead of them to try to finish off the condemned, and and you could try to like block out, if you could figure out what TV they were going to, you could block them out from it. And even if they made it there, if you had saved the best for last, you could actually teleport to it, hit them, and then as they move through you to go to the TV, you could 180 and knock them out before they could or down them before they could actually finish putting the tape back in. So it could be really hard to counter if the Onrio player was smart about it. And while I do think that Onrio needs good builds, because at the moment she is weak, a build that gets really hard to counter it's one of those things where it's like you never want people to feel like they don't have an option in that. And I feel like this is going to be a great change. The demanifestation. The Onrio can no longer be stunned while demanifested. That's an interesting change. It's one of those things where it's like, well, Wraith not only can be stunned, but actually gets a longer stun if they are stunned while they're cloaked. But the Onrio doesn't really get like any other bonuses other than not being other than not having a terror radius. The Onrio doesn't really have like any speed boost or anything that really makes the demanifested, powerful the way that the Wraith's cloak does. So I think no longer being able to be stunned while demanifested is a fair change. Chases are prevented when demanifested, making it more difficult to keep track of the Onrio's position, and demanifesting now removes bloodlust, similar to other killer powers. This is just a very fair balance change. That's just fair. Because like there are some really good plays that you can do with demanifesting, like using the brown newspaper add-on to make it harder for people to understand like how you're gonna play a loop. And so if you can like maintain like bloodlust like 2 and 3, that makes those like sort of like 50-50s really kind of hard to play as the survivor. It makes it borderline impossible if the Onrio can just come out of can just remanifest, and it's almost impossible to figure out, like you have to really go with your gut. And if she's able to move like bloodlust 2 and 3 out of demanifesting and remanifesting, that's a hard one to go with. Lastly, we've done a balancing pass on Onrio's add-ons, bringing her highest and lowest performing add-ons closer in line with the rest of the options. We don't have any information on it, so I'm not going to make any particular statements on it. People who are more skilled with Onrio and who know more about her will give you a better idea of how the add-on changes are going to affect her whenever we get those add-on updates. So hook grabs. When I saw hook grabs, I was like, No, 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 no. No, 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 no. No, 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 no. I'm actually I'm really hype. I'm really hype. We've all been in that situation before. A survivor runs toward their hooked friend, but the killer's nearby, so you both play a thrilling game of unhooked chicken. The survivor attempts to trick the killer into swinging so they don't get grabbed. Meanwhile, the killer tries to predict when the survivor may commit to the unhook to grab them and prevent the save. Beyond the scenario leading to some very awkward gameplay, this also makes it possible for a face camping killer to potentially defend the hooked survivor and put a second survivor into the dying state while they're at it. In this next update, we are removing grabs from unhooking survivors. In practice, this means that the awkward mind game when unhooking has been eliminated. Be warned, however, you still are not safe while unhooking. Though you may succeed in rescuing the hooked survivor, the killer will still be able to hit you twice before you can make your escape. In most cases, you will trade your safety for your friends. I am so fine with this. Anyone who's watched my Dead by Daylight streams knows that I play a lot of killer and a lot of survivor, and I've never liked this. I've never liked this, even as a killer. But I mean, then again, I don't really face camp, you know. So sometimes if I see people are running in for the save, I'll go in to try to get a trade. But I never liked the whole mind game of it, and I was one of the people who was always like the big change that I would want is no healthy grabs. I didn't like the idea of getting healthy grabs, not off of unhooks, glyphs, gens, I mean, there's a case being made for generators where you should still be aware of your surroundings and everything, but definitely not healthy grabs on unhooks. But just the fact that unhook grabs are being removed completely is so good. That's better than I could have ever anticipated. And honestly, I know I mentioned it, but it's not really that big of a deal. Grabs off of glyphs. How often do those really happen? How often are we doing glyphs? How often are we really stopping to to do glyphs? It's like, if the killer's gonna stop and let you, then they're just gonna let you. And if not, I think there are a lot of killers who don't even realize that you can grab off of glyphs. It's it's one of the things where, like, you see it happen and it's like, oh well, okay then. But yeah, no, I am perfectly happy with this. I actually had a game, I believe it was on stream not too long ago, that I was on hook and like 2 different people came in to rescue me, and it was just absolute chaos. It was absolute chaos. And like the third person was coming in, and one person got grabbed. Like, honestly, this was actually this is actually bot gameplay. I'm not gonna lie. I don't like trashing on people too much, but I got one person got grabbed trying to unhook me, and the killer and despite the fact that a second teammate was right there, the killer was actually able to drop them. And then the other survivor was, I don't know what they were doing, because my camera jerked back around when they got the grab. But they waited long enough to get the unhook that the killer got a grab on them too. And I'm like, oh my god, this is an absolute disaster. And luckily, the killer left to hook the second survivor, and my third teammate was able to get the unhook. But that was an absolute that was absolute nonsense, and I've definitely died on hook due to this unhooked chicken, as they so aptly put it. So I'm glad to see that gone. I'm so glad to see that gone. Brand new part. In recent months, brand new parts have once again become a hot topic for discussion. On their own, they can shave quite a bit of time from a generator, but this is compounded when multiple survivors bring one to a trial. We realize this can be frustrating for killers to face, and so we have decided to rework this add-on. When a brand new part is installed, you will face a difficult skill check. Upon succeeding the skill check, the generator's required charges are reduced by 10, and the add-on is consumed. That's an interesting change. I was one of the people who thought that the brand new part rework, and for the people who aren't familiar with how the old game was played, which I didn't play during that time, but I know the horror stories. Interestingly enough, the horror stories in this scenario are horrors inflicted upon the killer, not upon the survivors. But Brand New Parts originally completed a gen. So like, if 4 survivors came in with brand new parts, they could literally instantly, the moment they touched the generator, repaired. That was how brand new parts used to work. And somehow Behavior thought that was a good idea. But currently, if I remember correctly, it's 15 charges added base, and then you get 2 difficult skill checks, and they both add on 5. So you can get up to a quarter of the gen done. Or no, it's 90 charges? 90 charges to complete a gen. Yeah. But yeah, no, you can slam in a massive chunk of the generator if you get both those skill checks. So I think this rework to brand new part is very interesting because it reduces the amount of charges the generators require charges by 10. So the generator is now just quicker to fix. And so the thing that I would end up doing when I brought a brand new part is I wouldn't a lot of times I wouldn't use it immediately. I would save it because what can end up happening is you dump your brand new part into a gen, you make massive progress, but the killer comes to your gen first and you get pushed off of it, and maybe they have ruin, or maybe they just, kick it with, overcharge or something. And, and like, oh, look, that brand new part is just gone to waste. And so I would often save it for when I needed to, for when I knew the killer was busy, like on the other side of the map, or when I wanted to top off a gen quickly. This, however, seems like it will just make the gen easier to complete. Even if the killer tries to hold it. This actually kind of plays into like the anti-3 gen. Although people would argue that being able to dump a brand new part in it could actually be potentially better. But this makes it easier to get through a gen, even if it's being held aggressively by the killer. In terms of time saved, the updated brand new part will save 10 seconds compared to the previous 22.5 seconds. As this lowers the required charges for the affected generator, any regression perks which apply regression based on the generator's total charges will have their effectiveness slightly reduced. True. All right, so perks. This should be interesting. Coup de Grace, activating when generators are powered, means this perk can only activate up to 5 times per match. Extended lunges can surely make a difference, but it's difficult to benefit from this perk when they are so limited. That's true. I have seen like Otstarva and Spooky and some other Dead by Daylight content creators using Coup, and they're always being super careful with their tokens and everything. To help it come to play more often, Coup de Grace will now gain 2 tokens whenever generator's powered was 1. Well, I mean, it's still tied to tokens, but it's more generous with the tokens, which I think is I think is a good change to it. I don't actually see Coup de Grace that much as a survivor. I do remember one time in particular I was facing a Wesker in that, and I assumed that he was going to use his power, or that he was going to swing to try to hit me like at the pallet or something, but instead I ran through the pallet thinking, haha, I got you, and then he coup de grace my ass, and I was like, well, me, I guess. So I actually think Coup de Grace is a really cool perk, and I actually would like to see it. Speaking from the survivor side, even, I would like to see it more often, because I think Coup de Grace is a really cool perk, and it's really criminally underused. Claustrophobia. This perk also activates when a generator is powered. Since it only blocks vault locations within 32 meters of the completed generator, it's very likely this perk won't come into play unless you happen to be chasing a survivor nearby. We are removing the range restriction from claustrophobia. Survivors will want to react quickly and find a pallet instead of a window when this perk is activated. They're removing the range restriction. That's interesting. I've never used claustrophobia. just because it always seemed kind of useless to me. Because it's like, I mean, I thought the same thing. Unless I'm chasing someone nearby, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter unless I'm chasing someone nearby, and that's I've seen I remember in an Odsarva clip where someone happened to complete a gen nearby, and that blocked a window that the person he was chasing was running towards, and he just laughed because he was like, "Oh my god, is that actually claustrophobia value?" Like, it actually is. It actually is. Interestingly enough. But yeah, the fact that the range restriction is being removed, and now it's map wide. Oh, that's so interesting. That's so good. I'm very fascinated for the kind of stuff that's gonna happen now. So this is gonna make it a lot more tense, and that's honestly something that I'm really happy to see. I really want the tension to come back to Dead by Daylight. I really want it, because that's really the appeal of it, isn't it? Playing as a survivor is like feeling like you're in danger in that, feeling the threat of the killer, and that is what makes it really interesting and thrilling. And so anything that really brings that tension back is very good, very good. Hangman's Trick, another perk that is just kind of useless. Hangman's Trick finds itself in a tricky spot. Its range is fairly small, given that hooks are very common. However, increasing the range any further would cause it to reveal auras across nearly the entire map. Hangman's Trick will become Scourge Hook Hangman's Trick. This perk now reveals the auras of survivors within 8, 9, 10 meters of a Scourge Hook when a survivor is being carried. Huh. That's interesting, actually. That's very interesting. This perk now reveals the auras of survivors. So it's not something that's affected. So it's not something that's affected by someone being hooked on a Scourge Hook. It's something that works alongside your other Scourge Hooks, your other Scourge Hook perks. I actually think that's kind of useful. I mean, we'll see a jump in its use when it goes live, because people will want to try it out. People who don't play on PC and don't have access to the PTB will want to try it out. But I honestly don't think it will. I honestly don't think it's gonna increase its long-term use that much. I still think Hangman's Trick is not that great. Territorial Imperative. Oh god, how many useless perks are we going to go through? Territorial Imperatives, short aura reading duration can make it easy to miss. Add on to that the fairly large distance requirement, and it quickly becomes very tricky to use effectively. We have increased the duration of the aura reveal to 4, 5, 6 seconds, was 3. We have also lowered the distance the killer must be from the basement distance to 24 meters, was 32. To give survivors an opportunity to sneak in for a rescue, we have increased the cooldown of Territorial Imperative to 45 seconds. I don't know. I still don't think it's going to be that great of a perk. There are some perks that you just never see because they're just not really that useful, and I think this is just going to be one of them. I think it's going to take more work for Territorial Imperative to make any sort of comeback. The only times I've ever seen Territorial Imperative on a killer was someone doing Adept Huntress. Adept Huntress is the only time I see Territorial Imperative. Remember Me. This perk can help turn a match around towards the end, but it currently is not as effective as we'd like. Each time your obsession loses a health stake, gain a token. Each token increases the opening time of the exit gates by 6 seconds up to a maximum of 12, 18, 24 seconds. Was 4 seconds per token for a maximum of 8, 12, 16. There is no mention of the obsession being immune to it, so I'm guessing that's staying the same. I honestly don't see Remember Me all that often. I mean, I suppose like people who go for like the end game builds, the No Way Out, No Ed, Remember Me, stuff like that. Anything to slow down the gates opening. That anything to chew up the end game. Or well, I'm what I mean is stretch out the end game. I suppose that's good for the end game players. Hex crowd control. Having a window block behind a survivor after they vault it can come in handy in certain circumstances, but in many cases, the survivor can simply outlast the entity blocker. This doesn't create much pressure on the survivors to find and cleanse the hex totem. We are increasing the duration of entity blockers caused by hex crowd control to 40, 50, 60 seconds was 10, 12, 14. That's a major buff. And I think it's a good buff too. I rarely see hex crowd control. It's one of those things where if I vault a window and I see a block, I'm like, crowd control, interesting. And then I forget about it. Because it's really just as simple as like finding a different window or a different like vault in that. Like there's really hardly ever a time where you're going to want to just hang around the same window. I mean, the only time you really be hanging around the same window is if you're running Shack, and a lot of times in Shack you can actually kind of outlast crowd control just by mind gaming them after you vault out or vault in. Just play the mind game. Hack it. Shack is pretty safe. Hack is pretty safe. Shack is pretty safe. So yeah. This is gonna make some people you're gonna see Shack palette drop faster now. Trail of Torment allows the killer to hide their terror radius and sneak up on survivors. Since it disables the next time a survivor loses a health state, there often isn't much pressure on the survivors to venture over and stop the generator from regressing. To make this perk more threatening, Trail of Torment will now only deactivate when the affected generator stopped regressing, not when health state is lost. I like that. I've had some build ideas involving Trail of Torment, but it was one of those things where it's like it would be fun, but like, you know, you lose you get the element of surprise and then you lose it, you know. And so I think this is going to be pretty cool. Trail of Torment can give some pretty good scare factor and everything, but the fact that you lose that stealth immediately after the hit, yeah, makes it a little bit weaker. But this is definitely good. This is definitely a good buff, and I mean, it already shows that it already highlights the generator in yellow when it's kicked in that. So people are already able to disable it. But I think that's going to be a good change. Time will tell. It's very possible some people will find some really nasty build with it. But I think it's a very interesting rework. Survivor perks. Prove thyself. This perk grants a repair speed bonus to each survivor within a small range, allowing survivors to negate the penalty for working on a generator simultaneously. Though it is just as efficient to work on separate generators, there is still tremendous value in being able to finish a specific generator very quickly through co-op repairs. To bring this perk in line with other options, we are reducing the repair speed bonus to 6, 8, 10% per nearby survivor was 15%. We have also removed the blood point bonus for co-op repairs. Listen, when they remove blood point bonuses from perks, I'm just not surprised, because it's become a lot easier to get blood points. I have actually had trouble not capping out on blood points. I frequently have to spend like a few minutes just clicking the auto buy button. Auto buy, just trying to get rid of the all the blood points that I have, so that I'm not wasting them capped out. So I have no problem with blood point bonuses being removed. Of course, maybe other people are struggling to get blood points. I don't know. If you are, I'm sorry. My experience is not yours. And the repair speed bonus from Prove Thyself, honestly, I think Prove Thyself is gonna drop off a good bit. Because like it says, it is just sufficient to work on separate generators, and that is generally what you should be doing. That's generally what you should be doing, is just splitting up to split pressure across the map. But this is going to be a hit to the gen rushing meta for the people who just like all like spawn together and are like, we're gonna just hammer out gens like immediately. A few things are more crushing than installing Blast Mine on a generator only for the killer to ignore it for so long that your trap expires. We've increased the duration of Blast Mine to 100, 110, 120. Was 30, 40, 45. Yeah, that is going to be a massive bonus to it. And it also means that, like, a lot of the times I would see people like use Blast Mine like only when the killer was nearby, and then it was like okay, the killer's coming over the generator. Now Blast Mine, and we run off and like, go on, kick it, and then they just don't kick it. or you know, they end up having, you know, like Jolt or something, which damages the generator and disables the Blast Mine. Anyways. So yeah, it's gonna be really interesting. Blast Mine is one of those funny perks where it's like ha ha, gotcha, killer. Which I honestly kind of like. I've been Blast Mined a fair few times, and it's always like, okay, cheeky little shit. Okay. Wiretap is in a similar position to Blast Mine, and yeah, it's brought up in line with Blast Mine. We've also normalized the activation requirements and text descriptions between Blast Mine and Wiretap, meaning Wiretap will now activate after 50% worth the generator was 33%. Okay. I think that's fair. Saboteur, the hook-breaking heroes out there will know that even a fraction of a second can make the difference between sabotaging the hook and getting hit. When you swing in for the save, you want to get the job done as quickly as possible. We have reduced the time it takes to sabotage a hook without a toolbox to 2.3 seconds, was 2.5 seconds. A slight difference, but as someone who has had multiple times where I have gotten hit and knocked out of a sabotage, it sucks. I also had times where it also makes me think of times where I got the sabotage, but had to eat a swing, and just extra fraction of a second might have let me not only get the sabotage but escape unscathed. Also adjusted the cooldown for the perk 65 to. Okay, yeah. Tier 1 and Tier 2 were, yeah, punishingly long. I kind of forget that the level 1 was 90 seconds, which was, yeah, a bit more punishing, but yeah. Clairvoyance or reading can be handy, but there's only so many totems to go around. Clairvoyance will now activate upon blessing a totem in addition to cleansing. I like that change. They made a similar change to Overzealous, I believe, where you could also get it from blessing. So that's very good. Breakout, and the fact that it works with blessing also synergizes well with the fact that this is one of oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the witchy girl's name. Holy. I actually forgot her name. But the fact that she is the one that came with the original boon perks and that those are her original perks and that it's just good synergy with her other perks. Breakout helps you save a friend by putting yourself in harm's way. With the spacing between hooks, it can be very difficult for a survivor to wiggle out before getting hooked. Though we don't want this to be too common, we found that it wasn't coming into play too often. True. I've tried doing breakout strats, and it can be really hard to get value on it. Breakout now increases wiggle speed of the carried survivor by 25%, was 20%. However, to make this more risky, Breakout now has now activates within a 5-meter range, was 6 meters. Oof. Higher risk for the Breakout user, higher reward for the carried survivor. Yeah, that's, you know, it feels pretty fair to me, because it makes it more likely that you're going to get breakout value, but it's now riskier to go for the breakout value. Buckle Up, you can't always be guaranteed that the killer will leave a survivor on the ground in the first place, so when a perk like Buckle Up comes into play, you want to make sure that it is impactful. As someone who very rarely slugs, yes. you really cannot guarantee that a survivor is going to be left on the ground. A lot of the times, I was playing some games off stream yesterday, and yeah, I was just insta picking people. I was just insta picking because I didn't want to deal with any flashies. I had I had infectious fright, so it was like, okay, no survivors around me. Cool, pick. But really only slugging when there was another like injured person nearby, and I wanted the extra pressure. So what's the change? Upon healing a survivor from the dying state, both you and the excuse me, like die horribly. Upon healing a survivor from the dying state, both you and the healed survivor gain the endurance status effect for 6, 8, 10 seconds. I really like that. This is speaking as someone who loves the Instapick build that I believe Lee Still Gaming uses a lot. I love the Instapick build. It's so fun, but it's one of those things that you just can't use. That you just can't use unless you activate We're Gonna Live Forever. And I was actually about to adjust that build on my side. I was going to add we're made for this not because it's the meta speed perk, but because picking them up would give me the endurance. But now I can actually just swap out We're Gonna Live Forever with Buckle Up. That'll be fun. Smash Hit, when it comes to the exhaustion perk, Smash Hit isn't all too popular. No, it's not, and for good reason. Stunning the killer with a pallet is sometimes easier said than done. To make Smash Hit a more interesting choice, we have reduced the duration of the status effect of the exhaustion to 30, 25, 20. 20-second exhaustion from Smash Hit. Now that's a buff. now that's a buff. I like that. I still don't think Smash Hit's going to be too popular. There's just other exhaustion perks that are more reliable and are easier to activate, like Sprint Burst. Sprint Burst is just like Sprint Burst is pretty much the golden standard, because you can just 99 your Sprint Burst and boom, you got it ready. That and Lithe. People argue that like Lithe is better than Sprint Burst, because it's you don't have to worry about accidentally using it or anything. It's like, I don't really buy it. I don't buy the Lithe hype. I think it's a good perk, but it's not that great. And both of them are definitely still going to be better than Smash Hit. But if anything, we might see Smash Hit more often. Spine Chill. Before the visual terror radius was introduced, Spine Chill was often used by deaf and hard of hearing players to give themselves some sort of indication of the killer's terror radius. When Spine Chill was reworked, we made sure to keep this element unchanged until a proper accessibility setting could be introduced. That's actually cool. I didn't know that that's why they I didn't know that that's why they left that like that. That's really cool that Spine Chill was a it's one of those things where when you're not one of the people that the accessibility option is for, you don't realize how useful it is in that. It's one of those things where they talk about like, hey, remember those commercials where it's like, it's like people like doing like silly stuff, like just like dropping things and just like dropping a, bottle of orange juice and that. It's like, who is this for? Like, well, it's for people who are, it's for people who have disabilities and that. It's one of those things like you don't realize it because you don't understand how it's useful to you because it's not useful to you. Now that the visual terror radius is available, we are removing the terror radius visualization aspect of this perk. Nice. It just didn't really click to me. It just did not click to me. Keeping up our recent efforts to regularly review and tweak various killers and their add-ons. This is a juicy fucking update, I have to say. Speaking of juicy, the Executioner. The Executioner has a built-in mechanic to prevent him from camping a survivor in one of his cages. If he comes within 5 meters of a cage, it will disappear and reappear elsewhere on the map. This range is fairly small, true, which means the killer can stay nearby and wait for a survivor to move in for the save. To make this mechanic a little more effective, we are increasing its range to 10 meters. I think that's pretty good. a funny thing that I've actually seen Pyramid Head players do is when people swarm in to save from the cage. I have seen Pyramid Head players just go like, "Oh, you're all over here for the save? Okay, I'm gonna walk over, stand next to the survivor, and now they're on the other side of the map." Kept running, which is more than a little bit evil. But I wonder if I'm gonna see people doing that more often now that it's easier to activate it. Spirit, we have a number of add-on changes in store for the Spirit. Mother-Daughter Rings add-on, which increases the Spirit's movement speed while using Yamaoka's Haunting. It's currently far stronger than we'd like. To bring it closer in line with other add-ons, we have reduced the movement speed bonus to 25%, was 40%. I think that's very fair. The Mother-Daughter Ring is really powerful. I'm not a big Spirit player. I've dabbled quite a bit. I really enjoy her when I do play her. But I do think that Mother-Daughter Ring is really powerful. She's already really fast when she's phasing, but having an extra 40% buff is really powerful. Especially because the Mother-Daughter Ring downside is that you no longer see scratch marks. And so the people who are using Mother-Daughter Ring are the people who are really good at tracking, the people who are really good at playing Spirit. They're the ones who, who will notice every little thing. They'll notice a bit of grass move. They'll notice like the softest little whimper. So yeah, I think considering the fact that this add-on is most heavily used by the most skilled players, giving it a bit of a nerf is definitely very fair. It lowers the ceiling. It lowers the power ceiling of Spirit a bit, without really hurting regular players who aren't as great. Dried Cherry Blossoms add-on triggers Killer Instinct on survivors come within 4 meters of the Spirit while she is in Yamaoka's Haunting. Any information about a survivor's location is crucial while the Spirit is using her power, and given its fairly large range, this add-on has been overperforming. I actually never used it. Reduced to 3 meters though. That sounds like something that's very powerful. Like it says, any information that the Spirit gets is super powerful. Yakuyoke Amulet, Shiawase Amulet, and Kaiun Talisman. Each of these add-ons increases the duration of Yamaoka's Haunting. However, since the Spirit's power recharges over a set time, regardless of duration, this also meant that these add-ons had a hidden secondary effect of making her power recharge faster. These add-ons will no longer cause Yamaoka's Haunting to recharge faster. Their respective duration increases remain unchanged. Listen, people have been talking about this likely being a bug, and I think Behavior did address it at one point, or did at least acknowledge it. So I'm not surprised to see this. It's fair. It's that was a bug, not a feature, and the add-ons are now working as intended. Origami Crane, since the add-ons above no longer increase recovery rate, we wanted to ensure that options were available. If you want your power to recover faster, Origami Crane now increased the recovery rate of Yamaoka's Haunting by 20%, was 10%. Yes. And that was the thing. People were like, why would you even use Origami Crane when the amulets and talisman do double duty with recovery and duration, and you can get better value out of them. Rusty Flute. Likewise, Rusty Flute is also receiving increase in light of the change above. 40% was 25%. Fair. Hag is receiving a few add-on adjustments to this update. I'm actually going to skip Hag because I don't play Hag. I don't play Hag, and I rarely play against her, so I have no good idea about her add-ons, so I'm not even going to hazard a guess to them. Coldwind Farm balance update, as announced during this year's anniversary broadcast, which I missed. We are planning to regularly revisit and rebalance existing maps. Okay, I did actually hear about that from some people. First up on our to-do list for this year, Fractured Cowshed and Rancid Abattoir. The amount of times that bully squads will use Coldwind Farm. Or is it? No, it's not Coldwind Farm. I'm thinking. No, I'm thinking. I'm thinking of hackers going to what is it? the estate. Um, that's what I'm thinking of. But yeah, no. Cowshed is the corn blindness. For Fractured Cowshed, we found this map leaned too heavily in favor of survivors. True. It's big and there's all this corn, this line of sight blocker. So it doesn't even matter that a lot of it is empty. The fact that there's all this corn means that even though it's all empty, there's line of sight blockers everywhere. This made it very excuse me, god damn. This made it very easy for survivors to run from one pallet to another with very little risk of being caught in between. And that is true. Coldwind Fractured Cowshed can have some nasty strings of while there is a lot of wide open corn, there can be some really nasty tile synergy. I think wasn't there a Cowshed Infinite, I thought? I can't remember. I'm not a hardcore competitive player, so I don't know like all the infinites and everything. I'm sorry. Very little risk being caught in between. Second, the barn itself was a fairly strong setup for survivors, allowing them to waste quite a bit of the killer's time before leaving. True. I mean, I never really had that much of a problem with the barn, but I can see how it can be a pain in the ass. Especially if you didn't kick the doors or kick the breakable walls early. Third, the center of the map is mostly empty, featuring only corn. I literally just said that. Once any generators in the corn are completed, the killer has to patrol a big circle around the entire map to find survivors, making it very time consuming. True, and it's also one of the reasons why I like to stress doing the corn generators. Just as it's like, get these out of the way, and then it's just the perimeter, which is just punishing. To remedy this, we have made significant layout changes to the map, breaking up the strong outer ring of tiles in the process. Additionally, we have made some adjustments to the layout of the barn itself, which is now slightly closer to the middle of the map to reduce its strength. That's good, that's fair. As for Rancid Abattoir, depending on how the map generated, the slaughterhouse could feature strong setups for survivors, allowing them to waste a good amount of the killer's time. Additionally, the large freezer in the center of the building featured a single entrance and nothing important to gameplay, i.e. no pallets or windows, leaving little reason for anyone to explore it. Unless you got hit, just sort of panicked, forgot where you were, and ran in there and got downed, which is something that is certainly never happened to me. Never, ever. Never. So, we have updated the layout of the slaughterhouse to make stronger setups less effective. We have also opened up the wall in the back of the freezer to allow players to navigate it more easily. Awesome! Across the entire realm, you'll notice updated corn tiles with added detail, as well as updated edge tiles along the map's outer fences. Oh, okay. All right, so a little breakup in the corn and everything. That's okay. That's good. That's nice. That we reached the end of this developer update. Yeah, no, I like pretty much all of this update. I like pretty much all this update. Then again, I'm not a hardcore player. I'm more of a casual pleb. But, I mean, we'll see what other people have to say. And obviously, we'll all have to see how good this is. I can sit here and say that this all sounds good in theory, but we'll have to see how it is in practice, and that, which is, I mean, really the same for all of the updates. You know, I've never really liked the whole doomsayer attitude, and I will be the first to admit that the last time I did one of these videos, I was a bit of a doomsayer, and yeah, no, I made another video where I'm like, oh, hey, look at me. I was wrong. And yeah. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to this update. I really want to see how things change with the cold wind maps and everything. So, yeah, no, there's nothing else for me to say here. Catch me live, I suppose. And ta-ta.